The conference room smelled like stale coffee and Marcus Chen's expensive cologne. I sat across from him, my hands folded on the table, trying to look calm while my heart hammered against my ribs. Marcus leaned back in his chair with that smug smile I'd learned to hate over the past 6 months. Human Resources Director Patricia Williams sat beside him, her face carefully blank. "Anna, we need to discuss some concerning behavior," Marcus began, pulling out his phone. "I've been documenting our interactions for quality assurance purposes." My stomach dropped. He pressed play. My voice filled the room, criticizing the company's billing practices. Then another clip of me supposedly bad-mouthing clients. A third where I allegedly leaked confidential information to competitors. Each recording was damning. Each one sounded exactly like me. 'Cause it was me. Just sliced, rearranged, and stripped of context until truth became lies. Marcus paused the recordings. "I think termination is appropriate, don't you agree, Patricia?" She nodded mechanically. "Based on this evidence, yes." I didn't cry. Didn't beg. I just smiled. The kind of smile you give someone who's already lost but doesn't know it yet. "Interesting recordings, Marcus. I have some of my own." 6 months earlier, I'd walked into Vertex Solutions as their newest senior marketing analyst. The office in downtown Phoenix buzzed with the kind of energy that made you believe you were building something important. Marcus Chen, the vice president of operations, personally welcomed me during orientation. "Anna Rodriguez, right? Stanford graduate, 5 years at tech startups. Impressive resume." He shook my hand, holding it just a second too long. "I think you'll fit in perfectly here." At 32, I'd already survived 2 toxic workplaces. I knew the warning signs, the lingering handshakes, the unnecessary compliments about appearance rather than work, the late-night emails requesting one-on-one meetings to discuss strategy. But Vertex seemed different. The company had strong revenue, good reviews, and a genuine mission providing software solutions to small businesses. My team was talented. My manager, Claire Thompson, was supportive. For 3 months, everything was fine. Then Marcus started paying attention. Began with small things. He'd stop by my desk to chat about nothing. He'd CC himself on my project emails. He'd invite me to lunch meetings that somehow never included anyone else. I kept things professional, polite but distant. I thought that would be enough. The turning point came during the annual leadership retreat in Sedona. Marcus cornered me after dinner, wine glass in hand, asking if I wanted to see his suite's view of the Red Rocks. His hand found my lower back, fingers pressing just above my waistband. "You know, Anna, talented people like you need strong advocates in this company. I could be that advocate. If you're willing to be a team player." The implication was crystal clear. I stepped away smoothly. "I appreciate the offer, Marcus, but I'm heading back to my room. Early morning tomorrow." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Think about what I said." I went straight to my room and started a new folder on my personal cloud drive, labeling it Insurance Policy. My ex-boyfriend had been an audio engineer, and I'd picked up enough knowledge to recognize manipulation when I heard it. If Marcus was the kind of man who propositioned employees, he was the kind who'd retaliate when rejected. I needed protection. The next morning, I downloaded a recording app on my phone. Arizona was a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record conversations I participated in without telling the other person. Marcus's behavior shifted immediately after Sedona. The friendly attention became cold scrutiny. He started questioning my project decisions in front of colleagues. He reassigned my biggest client account to his favorite, Tyler Brooks, without explanation. He excluded me from strategy meetings I'd previously attended. Classic retaliation, but subtle enough that complaining would make me look paranoid. I started recording every interaction with him. Week 1. Marcus questioning why I'd filed an expense report for the Sedona retreat. The expenses were legitimate, but he implied I was padding numbers. I recorded the entire conversation, including the part where he couldn't identify any actual problems with my submission. Week 2. A one-on-one meeting where Marcus suggested I wasn't fitting the company culture, and maybe I'd be happier somewhere else. When I asked for specific examples of cultural misfit, he couldn't provide any. I recorded that too. Week 3. Marcus announced during a team meeting that my marketing strategy for our biggest client was subpar and needed adult supervision. Tyler would be taking over. I recorded his dismissive tone and Tyler's smug expression. But Marcus wasn't just retaliating against me. He was building a case. I discovered this by accident when Tyler left his laptop unlocked during a bathroom break. I glanced over while retrieving my notebook from the conference table and saw an open folder labeled Ana Rodriguez, Performance Issues. Inside were doctored emails, manipulated project timelines, and fabricated client complaints. Marcus was constructing an elaborate paper trail to justify my termination. I photographed the screen with my phone before Tyler returned. That night I couldn't sleep. This was beyond petty retaliation. Marcus was systematically destroying my professional reputation with forged evidence. If he succeeded, I wouldn't just lose this job. My entire career would be poisoned. I needed more than recordings of awkward conversations. I needed something devastating. So I started paying attention to everything Marcus did, not just what he did to me. I noticed how he pressured junior employees to work weekends without overtime pay, threatening their visa status if they refused. I recorded him making that threat to Priya Kapoor, our junior developer. I noticed how Marcus talked about female employees in leadership meetings. Claire finally invited me to one after I'd been there 4 months, and I couldn't believe what I heard. "Melissa's great, but you know how emotional women get during quarterly reviews," Marcus said casually, discussing our HR coordinator. "We need to be careful how we deliver feedback. Angela needs to smile more in client meetings," he added about our senior account manager. "She comes across as aggressive. It's off-putting." The other executives, all men except Claire, nodded along or stayed silent. Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't challenge him. I recorded everything. Not because I planned to use it immediately, but because I understood something crucial about men like Marcus. They felt untouchable. That arrogance would make them careless. Eventually he'd slip up. And when he did, I'd be ready. The slip came 3 weeks later during a client dinner. Marcus had too much scotch and started bragging to our client about creative accounting practices that increased our profit margins by 15%. He described how he instructed our finance team to bill certain expenses to completed projects instead of overhead, making our operational costs appear lower than they actually were. The client laughed uncomfortably. I smiled and changed the subject. And I recorded every word. What Marcus described wasn't just unethical. It was fraud. The kind that could trigger audits, lawsuits, and criminal investigations. I had him. But I couldn't just go to our CEO, Brandon Foster, with recordings. Marcus was Brandon's protege, the golden boy who'd increased revenue by 40% in 3 years. Brandon trusted him completely. If I accused Marcus without ironclad evidence, I'd be the one fired for making trouble. I needed more people. I needed a pattern that couldn't be ignored. So I started talking to other women. I began with Claire, my manager, during a coffee run. "Can I ask you something off the record?" She studied me carefully. "Depends on the question. Has Marcus ever made you uncomfortable? Personally, I mean not professionally." Claire's face went still. For a long moment she didn't respond. Then quietly, "Why do you ask?" "Because he made me uncomfortable at the Sedona retreat. And I'm wondering if I'm the only one." Claire chose her words carefully. "I can't talk about this without risking my career. But you're not the only one. And if you're thinking about doing something, be very careful. Marcus has protection at the highest levels." That was enough confirmation. I reached out to Angela, the senior account manager Marcus had criticized for not smiling enough. We met for lunch at a restaurant far from the office. "Marcus retaliated against me after I rejected his advances," I said directly. "I'm gathering evidence." Did he ever approach you inappropriately? Angela's expression shifted from surprise to recognition to relief. 3 years ago. He invited me to his house for a strategy session. When I got there, his wife was conveniently out of town. He offered me wine, sat too close, put his hand on my knee. I left immediately. What happened after? I got demoted from senior account manager to regular account manager. He said it was restructuring. My salary stayed the same, but my title and responsibilities decreased. I couldn't prove retaliation, so I just accepted it. Would you be willing to go on record if I build a case? Angela hesitated. Would it actually change anything, or would we both just get fired? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm tired of men like Marcus winning because we're too afraid to fight back. Angela nodded slowly. If you build something real, something that can't be ignored, I'll back you up. But I need protection. I have a mortgage and a daughter in college. I understand. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly contacted every woman I suspected Marcus had targeted. Some wouldn't talk to me, too scared or too defeated to relive their experiences. But 3 agreed to share their stories. Priya, the junior developer, described how Marcus threatened her H-1B visa status when she refused to work unpaid overtime. She had emails documenting the threats. Melissa, the HR coordinator Marcus called emotional, revealed that she'd filed a complaint about his behavior 2 years ago. The complaint mysteriously disappeared, and she was told to be more understanding of leadership pressure. And then there was Carmen Delgado, who'd left Vertex 6 months before I arrived. She agreed to meet me at a park, far from anywhere we might be seen. Marcus destroyed my career, Carmen said, her voice shaking with old anger. Carmen had been a rising star in operations before Marcus targeted her. When she rejected his advances at a company happy hour, he launched a systematic campaign to discredit her work. He altered her project reports to make her look incompetent. He excluded her from critical meetings. He spread rumors that she was difficult to work with. I reported him to HR, Carmen said. They investigated for exactly 1 week, then told me the complaint was unsubstantiated. 2 months later, Marcus fabricated a performance review claiming I'd missed deadlines and mismanaged budgets. None of it was true, but I couldn't prove it. I was given the choice: resign with a neutral reference or be fired with cause. So you resigned. I signed an NDA and took a severance package. I've been working freelance ever since because Marcus poisoned my reputation in this industry. Nobody will hire me for a full-time role. Tears filled her eyes. He stole my career, Anna. And he's still there, still doing it to other women. What if we could stop him? Yes. What if we had enough evidence that the company couldn't ignore it? My NDA only covers what you directly experienced. It doesn't prevent you from cooperating with an internal investigation if one gets opened. Carmen stared at me. You're serious? Completely serious. Marcus has been recording me to build a fake case for termination. But I've been recording him too. His fraud, his harassment, his threats. I have evidence that could bring him down. But I need corroboration. I need other women willing to confirm the pattern. If I violate my NDA, Vertex will sue me into bankruptcy. Not if we do this right. Not if we make the case so public and so documented that coming after you would be more damaging than letting you speak. Carmen took a deep breath. What do you need from me? Everything. Emails, performance reviews, documentation of the fake complaints he filed against you. And your testimony when the time comes. She pulled out her phone. I kept copies of everything. I told myself it was for closure, but maybe it was for this. She looked at me intently. Promise me we're going to win. I can't go through this again just to watch him walk away. We're going to win, I said with more confidence than I felt. Because this time he won't see us coming. I spent the next 3 weeks organizing everything into a comprehensive file. Marcus's harassment of 5 different women. His visa threats against Priya. His fraudulent billing instructions captured on recording. His disparaging comments about female employees documented across multiple meetings. I cross-referenced timelines, verified facts, and prepared a presentation that would be impossible to dismiss. Meanwhile, Marcus escalated his campaign against me. He started pulling Tyler into closed-door meetings, both of them glancing at me through the glass walls. He requested copies of all my project files, claiming he needed to audit work quality. I knew what was coming. He'd already built his fabricated case. Now he was just waiting for the right moment to spring the trap. That moment came on a Tuesday morning. Patricia from HR called me into a conference room with Marcus already seated and waiting. The ambush I'd been expecting. Marcus played his edited recordings. Each clip expertly manipulated to make me sound insubordinate, unprofessional, and dishonest. Patricia listened with a practiced expression of concern and disappointment. "I think termination is appropriate," Marcus concluded confidently. Patricia nodded. "Based on this evidence, yes." This was the moment I'd been preparing for. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "Interesting recordings, Marcus. I have some of my own. Would you like to hear them?" The color drained from Marcus's face. "What are you talking about?" "Well, for starters, I have your conversation with our client where you described committing billing fraud. You know, the creative accounting that artificially inflates our profit margins. I'm sure the SEC would find that fascinating." Patricia straightened in her chair. "Anna, that's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation. It's documentation." I pulled up the audio file. "This is from 3 weeks ago at dinner with Caldwell Industries. Would you like me to play the part where Marcus explicitly describes falsifying expense allocations?" Marcus's hands clenched. "You were recording me. Arizona is a one-party consent state. Every recording I have is completely legal." I smiled sweetly. "Unlike your little editing project here, which is fraud, defamation, and wrongful termination. But there's more." I pulled up another file. "This is you threatening Priya Kapoor's visa status because she wouldn't work unpaid overtime. That's coercion and wage theft." Another file. "This is you at a leadership meeting describing female employees as too emotional and needing to smile more. That's gender discrimination." I looked directly at Marcus. "And this is my favorite." I played the recording from the Sedona retreat. Marcus's voice filled the small conference room, every word crystal clear. "Talented people like you need strong advocates in this company. I could be that advocate. If you're willing to be a team player." My voice responding. "I appreciate the offer, Marcus, but I'm heading back to my room." His voice colder now. "Think about what I said." Patricia's face had gone completely white. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is entrapment. You manipulated me into propositioning a subordinate employee, into retaliating when I rejected you, into building a fake case using edited recordings." I stood too, meeting his eyes. "No, Marcus. You did all of that yourself. I just documented it." I turned to Patricia. "I have recordings of 4 other women describing similar harassment. I have documentation of fabricated performance reviews and falsified complaints. I have evidence of systematic retaliation spanning 3 years. And I have witnesses willing to testify to all of it." Patricia found her voice. "Anna, I need to speak with Marcus privately. Please wait outside." "No." My voice was steady. "I'm not leaving this room until we discuss next steps. Because if I walk out that door without resolution, my next stop is Brandon Foster's office. And after that I'm calling a lawyer. And after that I'm contacting the media. Every piece of evidence I have will become public record in a lawsuit." Patricia looked between Marcus and me, clearly calculating which outcome would be worse for the company. Marcus's face had gone from pale to flushed, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. "You vindictive bitch," he said quietly. I was trying to help your career. All I did was offer mentorship, and you twisted it into something dirty. Play the recording again, I suggested to Patricia. See if it sounds like mentorship to you. Patricia held up her hand. Marcus, I think you should leave. Anna, please stay. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but Patricia's expression left no room for negotiation. He grabbed his phone and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glass walls. Every head in the open office turned toward us. Patricia sat down slowly. How long have you been documenting this? Since the night he propositioned me in Sedona. 6 months. And you never came to HR? Melissa came to HR 2 years ago with a complaint about Marcus. What happened to that complaint, Patricia? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I have 5 women willing to testify about Marcus's harassment, I continued. I have audio evidence of fraud. I have proof that he fabricated evidence to fire me in retaliation for rejecting his advances. This isn't going away quietly. Patricia rubbed her temples. What do you want, Anna? I want Marcus fired. Immediately. No severance, no neutral reference, no quiet resignation. I want a formal investigation into how HR handled previous complaints against him. I want policy changes ensuring this never happens again. And I want protection for every woman who comes forward. That's a lot to demand. It's nothing compared to what you'll lose in a lawsuit. Sexual harassment, retaliation, fraud, hostile work environment. How much do you think that costs in legal fees and settlements? Not to mention the PR nightmare when this becomes public. Patricia stood. I need to speak with Brandon immediately. Don't leave the building. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room, my hands finally starting to shake. I just threatened to burn down my career if the company didn't act. If they called my bluff, if they decided to fire me anyway and fight it out in court, I could spend years in legal battles with uncertain outcomes. But I'd meant every word. I was done being afraid. 45 minutes later, Patricia returned with Brandon Foster, our CEO. Brandon was in his 50s, silver-haired and usually charming in that effortless way successful executives manage. Today he looked stressed and angry. Anna, Patricia briefed me on the situation. These are extremely serious allegations. They're not allegations. They're documented facts. Would you like to hear the recordings? That won't be necessary. What I need to understand is why you didn't come forward sooner. We have policies. Your policies failed Melissa when she reported Marcus 2 years ago. They failed Carmen Delgado, who was forced to resign rather than fight fabricated performance reviews. Your policies protect men like Marcus because he makes you money. Brandon's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? Marcus increased revenue by 40%, so everyone looked the other way when women complained. When junior employees were threatened. When billing practices crossed ethical lines. You didn't want to see it because seeing it would require action. If what you're saying is true, it's all documented. Every conversation, every threat, every instance of harassment and fraud. 6 months of evidence that would hold up in any courtroom. I leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen. Marcus gets fired today. You launch a real investigation, not an HR whitewash. You implement new reporting procedures with external oversight. You compensate the women he drove out. And you create protections ensuring retaliation isn't tolerated. Brandon exchanged a glance with Patricia. And if we do all of this, then this stays internal. No lawsuit, no media attention, no SEC investigation into the billing fraud. You get to fix this quietly. That sounds like blackmail. That sounds like negotiation. You can handle this now on my terms or handle it later on a plaintiff attorney's terms. Your choice. Brandon was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. Patricia, draft a separation agreement for Marcus effective immediately. No severance beyond accrued PTO. Anna, I'll need copies of all your evidence for the investigation. You'll get it once Marcus is gone and the policy changes are in writing. You don't trust us to follow through. Would you? I asked quietly. He almost smiled. Probably not. Fine. You have my word in writing by end of business today. Marcus will be escorted out within the hour. 30 minutes later, I watched from my desk as security accompanied Marcus through the office. He carried a single box of personal belongings, his face rigid with fury. As he passed my desk, he stopped. "This isn't over," he said quietly enough that only I could hear. "Yes, it is," I replied calmly. Security moved him along. The office buzzed with speculation. Tyler looked like he'd seen a ghost. Claire caught my eye from across the room and gave the smallest nod of approval. Good one. Marcus was gone. But the real work was just beginning. That evening, Brandon sent the promised email outlining policy changes. External reporting hotline for harassment complaints. Mandatory anti-retaliation training for all managers. Third-party review of past HR cases involving harassment allegations. And a confidential settlement fund for women who'd been pushed out. I forwarded the email to Angela, Priya, Melissa, and Carmen. Within an hour, they'd all replied with variations of the same message. Thank you. Carmen's message included a postscript. I'm meeting with Vertex's legal team tomorrow about compensation. Marcus's NDA doesn't look so scary anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, I provided Dr. Hamilton, the external investigator Brandon hired, with all my evidence. She interviewed every woman who'd been willing to come forward. The investigation was thorough and professional, everything HR should have been from the beginning. Marcus tried to fight back through lawyers, threatening defamation lawsuits and claiming he was the real victim. But his attorneys quickly realized he had no case. The recordings were legal. The evidence was overwhelming. And most damaging of all, the billing fraud I documented meant Vertex had to self-report to avoid worse penalties if auditors discovered it independently. Marcus's legal threats evaporated. His reputation in the Phoenix tech community collapsed as word spread about why he'd really been fired. His carefully crafted image as a brilliant executive crumbled, replaced by whispers about harassment and fraud. Meanwhile, I went back to work. Claire was promoted to Marcus's former position as VP of Operations, becoming the first woman executive at Vertex. Her first action was promoting Angela back to Senior Account Manager and giving Priya a significant raise with a permanent visa sponsorship. Tyler quietly left the company 3 weeks later. Turns out Brandon didn't appreciate employees who helped fabricate evidence against their colleagues. 1 month after Marcus's termination, Brandon called me into his office. I tensed automatically, but his expression was warm. "Anna, I owe you an apology. You were right about the company protecting Marcus because he made us money. That was wrong. And I'm grateful you had the courage to force us to confront it. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because someone had to. I know. Which is why I'd like to offer you a new position." Brandon slid a folder across his desk. Inside was an offer letter for Director of Marketing, a significant promotion with a salary increase and direct reporting to Brandon. "This isn't compensation for what you went through," he said. "This is recognition of your strategic thinking, your leadership, and your integrity. You earned this position. The circumstances just made it available sooner." I stared at the offer letter. Director. Everything I'd worked toward for years. Everything Marcus had dangled and threatened and tried to steal from me. "I need to think about it," I said slowly. Brandon looked surprised. "You don't want the promotion. I want to make sure I'm staying for the right reasons. Not because I'm afraid to leave, not because I need to prove something, but because this is where I want to build my career. Take whatever time you need." That night I made a pros and cons list. Stay or go. Fight or flight. Stay. Promotion I earned, opportunity to implement real change, support network of women who fought alongside me, proof that victims can win. Go. Fresh start without trauma associations, no risk of company backsliding, freedom from office politics, protect my mental health. I called my sister Sophia, who'd been my support system through everything. Mija, you already know what you're going to do, she said in Spanish. You're just scared to admit it. What if I stay and they make my life miserable? What if Brandon resents me for forcing accountability? What if I'm forever that woman who got Marcus fired, instead of Anna, the talented marketer? Then you leave. But you don't leave before you try. You fought too hard to walk away from victory now. She was right. I'd spent 6 months planning, gathering evidence, building a case. I'd stared down Marcus and the entire executive team. It survived. I wasn't going to walk away now. The next morning, I accepted Brandon's offer. 3 months into my new role, I received an unexpected email. Subject line: Thank you. Anna, my name is Jessica Torres. I'm a junior analyst at Vertex. You don't know me, but I know your story. Everyone does. What happened with Marcus affected all of us, especially the women. Before you came forward, I was dealing with harassment from my team lead. Small things at first. Inappropriate comments, uncomfortable touching, persistent requests for drinks after work. I reported it to HR and expected nothing to happen, just like Melissa's complaint. But this time HR investigated. They interviewed witnesses. They took it seriously. My team lead was removed from his position within 2 weeks. That wouldn't have happened before you. You changed what's possible here. You proved that speaking up can work. So thank you from me and from every woman at Vertex who now feels a little bit safer coming to work. Jessica. I read the email 3 times, tears blurring my vision. This was why I stayed. Not for the promotion or the salary or even the satisfaction of watching Marcus fall. For the Jessicas who came after me, who now had a fighting chance. 6 months after Marcus's termination, Vertex was named one of Phoenix's best places to work for women in tech by a local business magazine. The article specifically mentioned our reformed harassment policies and commitment to external accountability. Brandon framed the article and hung it in the executive hallway. I walked past it every day, thinking about how close we'd come to none of this mattering. 1 year after Marcus's termination, I spoke at a Women in Tech conference in San Francisco. Standing backstage, I felt the weight of every woman who couldn't speak, who'd signed NDAs they couldn't break, who'd left careers they loved because fighting seemed impossible. I walked onto the stage carrying their stories. My name is Ana Rodriguez. 1 year ago, my boss sexually harassed me and then tried to fire me using fabricated evidence. Today, I'm the director of marketing at the company where that happened. And I'm here to tell you how we fought back. For 30 minutes, I told the story. The harassment, the recordings, the evidence gathering, the confrontation. I talked about the importance of documentation, of finding allies, of being willing to risk everything for accountability. You don't need to be fearless, I said. I was terrified every single day. You just need to be more afraid of staying silent than speaking up. And you need to document everything. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, women lined up to share their stories, to ask advice, to say thank you for showing them it was possible. One woman, maybe 24, approached with tears streaming down her face. My manager has been doing what Marcus did to you. I've been documenting it for 2 months. I didn't know if anyone would believe me. But hearing your story, I'm going to HR tomorrow. I'm going to fight back. I hugged her tight. You're not crazy. You're brave. And you're not alone. She wasn't alone. None of us were anymore. That night, I sat in my hotel room overlooking San Francisco Bay and thought about everything that had changed in 1 year. Marcus was gone, his career destroyed. 5 women had received settlements. Vertex had implemented real reforms. And I'd built a career I was proud of. There were still hard days. Moments when I wondered if staying was right. Times when I saw Marcus's face in my nightmares. Days when being that woman who took down her boss felt heavier than any promotion. But there were good days too. Days when I mentored young professionals who reminded me of who I'd been. Days when women emailed me their success stories after fighting back. Days when I walked through Vertex's office and saw the culture we'd built, imperfect but evolving. My phone buzzed. Email from Jessica Torres. Anna, remember when I emailed you about my team lead? I wanted you to know I just got promoted to senior analyst. My new manager is supportive and professional. I'm building the career I always wanted, in an environment where I feel safe and valued. That exists because you fought for it. Thank you for not giving up. Jessica. I closed my laptop and looked out at the city lights. Marcus had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd created someone who taught others how to fight back. I am Anna Rodriguez. I survived. Fought back. I won. And I'm just getting started. Then, if you're experiencing workplace harassment, document everything. Find your allies. Remember, their power depends on your silence. The moment you speak up with evidence and courage, everything changes.